afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our 10 Go-eCommerce Pocket Talk series. We come to our 10th session, and we are seeing regular attendees that supported this Pocket Talk series. I don't want to waste time because we have a lot of people walking in the clinic at the moment. Nothing wrong with me, I'm okay. So this session is recorded, and you can follow my YouTube channel later when I replay it. Last week's session was with Ombre on Shopify. I never get to edit the videos yet because I've just done the halalstreet.co.uk, and we have invited KASS International. I should say that it's a law firm lah, but it's an IP. But I let Geetha introduce later, and I have Harit as well here that will help to answer the Q&A. I'm going to launch the poll, launching now. The poll has two simple questions asking whether have you done any exporting via e-commerce, and have you registered your logo and your brand to trademark or not? Okay, so that we better understanding the crowd. Okay, we have 12 people at the moment inside here. Not to worry. When we finish this session, when it's recorded, we'll share it over to our newsletter that has 40K subscribers. So I'm going to invite and ask Geetha to get ready. She is from KASS International. We'll share short presentation about KASS and about IP trademark, and also about the MDG grant. Post your Q&A at the Q&A box so that we can track. So answer the poll. And while we are doing this, let me unpin myself, remove pin. And Geetha, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, cool. Welcome to the Pocket Talk, and we are happy to have you here, have the team here as well to support this. And it's a very interesting topic because lately, a lot of our e-commerce business owners have started saying that they can claim their B2B shipments via the MDG grant. And immediately it was happening, that kind of buzz. Vijay came to me and asked, Carol, would you be interested to share this kind of information to the Go-eCommerce attendees? I said, yeah, why not? Let's book you guys a slot in this session. So right now, you prepare your slides, introduce yourself, and then you prepare your slides, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. That's a very nice introduction. And yes, I mean, this grant is actually really relevant, and we're honored to be present here to share with all of you who might be exporting or you might not, and you're keen to find out on what is this free money from government about, right? So a bit about myself. I've been in intellectual property for the past 17 years, and KASS has been around for the past 22 years. As Carol said, we're not a law firm. We're actually a company, and we advise on anything and everything to do with IP. And that's why this grant is also really important to us, because part of that grant is government is assisting us with IP protection abroad as well. I'll tell you more than just the IP part of it. That's part of the intention here, is to advise you and educate you on this grant. What can you claim? Is your company eligible? If you can claim, how do you go about it? And what deadlines do you need to know about? Yeah. So as Carol said, I said earlier, we are a company. We are based in Malaysia, but we're also based in 6 other ASEAN countries directly. And there's about 50 of us now who specialize on IP. We do talks like this, a lot of awareness talks, because a lot of importance on how do you grow your business. All of you are tuning in now, and you're entrepreneurs, right? You want to be able to grow your business through assets that you have, any ideas that you have. So we come in to analyze your ideas. Have you reduced it to substance? Is that brands? Is that technology? Is that designs? Is that softwares? Many of you in the software space. And then how do you grow with your intellectual property rights? That's what we do. So let's get started, everyone. Feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A box. As you can see down, there's Q&A and there's chat box. If you have questions, don't put it in the chat box, put it in the Q&A segment so that we can run through it. Later, MDEX, Vidzwan will come and we'll do a Q&A session. So do make it interactive. Don't be shy. No questions, a silly question. All right, so going global to the ASEAN. What do these trademarks have in common? What do you think? Anyone? Use the chat box. A quick one word to explain what do these trademarks have in common? These brands. Might take a guess. Yeah, anyone? Are everyone allowed to message in the group?
Yes,
Okay.
they are.
Okay. Okay, awesome. So if you've had a good lunch and you have coffee, you'll be wide awake now. So what do you think is the key thing that all these brands have in common? We've mixed foreign brands and we've mixed local brands. Business identity. So Jeffrey, thanks for being interactive. So Jeffrey says business identity. And yes, I think that relates to branding. He's like, oh, they have a brand presence. Anyone else? Business strength, right? Business owners, like, put any message out there. What's the first thing that comes to mind? What do you think that these trademarks have in common? Prominent. Yeah, which one? They are prominent. No, all of these are brands that are known to us. So it's interesting, right? It's because all of these brands once started their business locally. Each and every one of you are starting something or have started something. You have a brand as well, or you're developing your brand. These all, once upon a time, started in a garage somewhere, started in a home kitchen somewhere. You know, all the testing for Brahims or KFC when they're coming up with a batter. All the idea behind it started small. From local, they then took their brand global. So it's talking about growing global. And that's where these grants that the government gives is really important, because this is the government assisting businesses to grow their brand, not just in Malaysia, where there's 36 million, but outside of Malaysia. Now, if you're not looking at the ASEAN market, then this is very important to you. If you're already looking in the ASEAN market, that is great. The ASEAN market is a big market. It's the third largest economy in Asia. If you have been traveling a lot in Southeast Asia, you would notice, right, that one country is very much interested in the ASEAN market. And when I say that, I mean, when you enter into Thailand, when you enter into Myanmar or Vietnam, you'll see brands from this country already in this emerging market. Okay, let's use the chat box again. What country do you think it is? Take a guess. Which ASEAN country or which country is very much interested in the ASEAN market and is already very, very active? Anyone want to take a guess? Who do you think is aware that this emerging market is super important? It's 7th largest in the world, yeah? 7th largest economy, and I'll show you some data. Jeffrey says US. India, China, that's a good one. China also, yes. China, Doreen shares China. Angeline says Indonesia. All good guesses. US and China are very good guesses. India too, but you know what? The one that stands out a lot is Singapore. Singapore has been entering into the ASEAN market for at least the past 20 years. US and China are good, very good contributions and answers, because US and China, I feel, enter every country, right? US and China being the largest economy, they maximize their own market, which that itself, right? To be honest, if we are an entrepreneur in US and China, that will take years to even maximize your own country before you get out of US and you get out of China. For us, being such a small population, getting out is already important. It should be in your 7-year plan. It should be in your 5-year plan. But Singapore, you know why Singapore is one of the countries that has already entered into ASEAN? And this was ages ago. Because their population. Their population is a small population. Their economy, even though it's high level of GDP, still there is a limit because of their population. Everything is driven by consumer purchase. Myanmar, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand has very big brands from Singapore. All you have to do is walk in shopping malls, walk in the street, and you see a lot of Singaporean chains of restaurants, chains of hair salons, and so on. That's because it's the 7th largest economy. And the other thing is that the Singaporean government helps a lot for local entrepreneurs to exit the country or expand out of the country. So Malaysia is getting in suit as well. These are examples of GDP in 2020, 3.11 trillion, 2020 in the ASEAN market, 673 million population. That's why it's important. Now, when you're exporting and you're low on funds, this is where it comes in. Today, I'll be talking to you on MATRADE's new grant. Small and medium-sized companies are eligible for this grant. But do take note, these are for activities from 1st of January until 31st of December this year. So let's go through what type of export promotion activities are allowed. Not everything, right? So only 5 areas are allowed. The first one is registration of intellectual property rights for international markets. Then you have advertising and promotion, A&P, again for export market. So these are advertising and promotion work that's done to get more work outside Malaysia. Financial compensation for cancellation or postponement of trade fair and exhibition locally or overseas. This is basically because of the pandemic, you might have spent money to join trade fairs and exhibition and you can't go because there's travel restrictions. So there's a financial compensation given by the government. There's reimbursement on logistic costs for sending Malaysian products overseas. And there's international certification for exports. Sometimes there's international certifications that you're obtaining because the countries don't even allow the exports to enter without the certification. That can be claimed back as well. Now, who is eligible? Well, very important is that the grant is only for SMEs, right? SMEs, also trade and industry association, chambers of commerce and professional bodies. But with regards to SMEs, which most of us are SMEs, we need to prove that we are 60% of shareholding is owned by Malaysian companies. And product manufacturers, traders, and products who are selling products in the product line, the products must be Malaysian made, right? So it cannot be made in a different country and then you just touch it up in Malaysia. It has to be made in Malaysia. There's a very strict requirement and documentation to prove that it's made in Malaysia. SMEs must also meet the following criteria. And this is basically the criteria on what makes you an SME, makes that entity an SME. If you are in the manufacturing line, then your annual sales must not exceed 50 million or your number of employees does not exceed 200. If you're in the trading line, then your annual sales must not exceed 20 million and full-time employees must not exceed 75. Services, again, similar to the previous one, you must not exceed 20 million sales and staff force not exceeding 75. So that's what qualifies for SME. We've had inquiries a lot on this. So if you do, feel free to put it in a Q&A segment. We had a lot of companies asking us, our main company, our holding company is already exceeded this, but we are a subsidiary. So if that's one of your questions, share it in, right? Ask as many questions. Then professional service providers are also allowed. So these are accountancy firms, law firms, medical line, dentists, right? They also qualify. Sole proprietor partnerships with at least 60% equity owned by Malaysians. And the professional service providers also have a criteria as a threshold of not exceeding 20 million or not exceeding 75 employees. And then what kind of annual sales are we talking about? We're talking about the latest financial statement. So you'll be adducing 2020, or if your financial year ends in mid this year, then you'll be this year's records, right? Okay, and full-time employees based on latest EPF statement. Now, another requirement is that any SMEs or professional service providers must first be registered with MATRADE. So if all of you tuning in today are not even registered with MATRADE, that is something that needs to be done. Good news for you is registration is free. Right? Registration is free and registration is fast. KASS, we registered MATRADE back in 2008. Now, how much is the grant? Is it even worth your trouble, right? That's also possibly what you're asking, because we all know grant application takes time and takes energy. So you can see from the amount on this slide that the grant is actually substantial, right? Registration of intellectual property in the international market. And that means that you're looking at protecting your technology, protecting your software. If you create any software, any apps, any tech, and you want to protect it by copyright, your copyright protection, any brands that you have, if you're looking at franchising, eventually you want to franchise the foreign market, the franchisees do not even want to take up a franchise that's not registered, because how will you then attack any copycats if you haven't registered your brand? So that's for trademark. Then you have industrial designs, a special shape of a bottle for your product, a special shape for packaging. If you came up with it, it's a new idea. It's the reason why you're unique. You want to protect it, because the first thing you want to do when you expand your business overseas is to also make sure that it's a safe business. The competitors can't simply come and copy your business model or your product or your service. So where you can build a fence with intellectual property rights, you will. So that's where IP is actually really important, and that's why it's part of the grant as well. The MATRADE is aware that one of the key things when a business expands overseas is people will copy, and when people copy, how do you then stop them? So this grant amount is 30,000 ringgit per application, and very interesting. So we had a lot of clients ask me this also, say that, Geetha, but if I register my trademark and there's 5 classes, does it consider as 5 different applications? Well, 1 trademark application is considered per application, and 1 patent application is considered per application. There is no limit to how many applications you can file for each category. So let's say you have 2 trademarks, 2 different brands, and you utilize this twice. Then you go to logistics. Logistics, you're exporting to Indonesia and you're also exporting to Thailand. Again, you apply twice. It's okay. The application numbers are not limited, right? So there's a max 30,000, 70,000 ringgit, all that per application. But very important is on this slide, take a snapshot of it if you find it, like you need to remember this. Very important down there is 300,000 ringgit is a maximum cap companies can claim for all the activities combined. But MATRADE has also informed us that the 300,000 ringgit cap is a lifetime cap, right? So you don't want to kind of max out your 300,000 because it's a lifetime cap. And MATRADE being the association with the government that encourages us to grow and to venture abroad, will always have other grants later on. So utilize this wisely. The second one is also very crucial. And I say very crucial because when we see businesses go abroad, of course, you need to do advertising and promotion. How does anyone even hear about your brand or know that you exist or know why you are good, right? So these expenses are also can be claimed 70,000 ringgit per application, up to financial compensation for cancellation or postponement of trade fairs. So yes, if you've spent money, do claim this back. Reimbursement on logistics costs for sending Malaysian products overseas. Logistics, so as I mentioned earlier, if you're exporting to outside of Malaysia, you can claim back, but do remember, only 30% of total logistic costs can be claimed, not exceeding 40,000 per application. So per shipment, right? You're looking at per shipment because they'll also look at your bill of lading. They look at your invoicing. So it's going to be per shipment, but 30% of total logistic cost. International certification for exports will be 30,000, right? So that's for the amount. If you all have questions on this, please jot it down in the Q&A. Now let's look at the deadline to remember. There are 2 deadlines to note. For all activities under 1st of January to 14th of July, the submission must be made before or by 12th of August. Today is 20th of August. So you cannot claim from 1st of January to 14th of July because that deadline has passed. And what you can do is plan for the future, plan for the next 6 months. Very, very important. If you are looking at the foreign market, look at this deadline because the second deadline is where you can come in and you can look and strategize all about your business strategy, right? For all activities undertaken from 15th of July 2021 to 31st of December 2021, depending on what grant you apply for, these are the deadlines. Okay, let's look at it. 30 calendar days from the day's activity started. These all relate to what I mentioned earlier, yeah? So you're talking about this 5 here. IP and advertising and promotion, both are 30 calendar days from the date activity started. So the day we file the application, the trademark application or the patent application, or 30 days from the date that you started your advertising and promotion activity. For trade fairs and exhibitions that are cancelled, 30 calendar days from the last date of the event. Then 30 calendar days from shipment date. This is for the logistics. So be very aware of this grant, because you then see it's not just apply by the end of the year. It's not just apply by 31st of December. It's actually being very aware of when the activity happened or when you got that invoice, right? Within 30 days from the date of activity. So do be alert on this, and also be alert on when you start all these activities. So go back to this, right? Let's look at this. We have, if we are in the middle of August, you basically have 4 more months, your last quarter. So we've been telling a lot of clients, strategize for what you need, what advertising promotion that you need overseas. Of course, because it's a reimbursable grant, you need to incur the cost first. If you're incurring the cost first, not everyone can go there and just apply for everything. That's just, your cash flow is just killed then, right? So of course, there needs to be a lot of planning. What's priority? What's going to be needed? It's okay to kill my cash flow now if next year I don't spend on A&P, see, right? If you plan your A&P carefully, you might not even need to spend it next year. We do not know. We've asked MATRADE this question. Will this grant deadline be extended? Ideally, it's extended for 2022 because we're all facing a crisis, right? They have not given any black and white yes or no. It just says that this is the deadline for now, right? They don't know. It's going to be also, does government have money, right? It's always going to be that. Where do you submit your grant application? It is through the MATRADE's website. You can submit your completed applications there. All documents must be submitted online. We have found that when you have questions and you call MATRADE, it might be difficult to reach them, but if you email them, they do reply. So you can also email them your inquiries. Start finding out things now if you feel that instead of waiting for your deadline to come, because that might make you nervous and makes the event of getting this grant also stressful. Where documents are submitted in black and white, documents must be certified by an external auditor, external chartered accountant, commissioner of oath, and the issuer of payment of documents. And claim documents must be made on either the company's name, or if under the individual must be listed in the list of directors or shareholders on the EPF statement. So very important here, yeah, because if, for example, KASS is also in Indonesia, in Thailand, in Vietnam, and Myanmar, and our A&P expenses, if issued to our Indonesian entity or Thailand entity and whatever entity we have in overseas, right, we cannot claim back because it's not issued into the Malaysian 60% owned company. So how you get your bills where they are issued also is very important. Must be issued into the Malaysian entity. And documents not in English translation require English translation. Yeah, not in English language requires an English translation. What documents are required? There's a lot of important information that is confidential in nature. Certificate of incorporation for your company, memorandum and articles of association, annual return of the company having a share capital, and a company's audited financial accounts. And you can see it's full set, latest EPF statement to show that you're paying EPF for your team. For suppliers or traders, a declaration letter by the supplier, right, to support the above. And then FAQs on expanded MDG. So we have some FAQs here, preempting your questions, right? Basically, we also had a lot of questions. We wanted to help clients, and clients kept coming to us, asking us a lot of questions on this. Does providing services outside of Malaysia qualify as exports for the purposes of this grant? MATRADE has replied saying, yes, both service provider and professional service provider registered under statutory bodies are qualified. So you're looking at, so very important, because some of you, I know with MDEC and with e-commerce, or in the software field, some of you might be SaaS, service as software, right? Where you log in, people use your software even from abroad. Kind of like Grab and all these other platforms where it's a service, but it's through a software. So those are services actually as exports. If you have foreign clients in those countries utilizing your services, right, and paying you in this payment. So those are also considered as export. So yes, those services are considered as export under this grant. Can you claim a contract under one of our branch offices? As the example given earlier, no, it has to be under the applicant's name in the local company, your Malaysian entity. For advertising and promotion activities, can you work with any agency, or is there a specific list of providers you must use? And no, there's no specific list of providers. So this again opens up your market to being able to use many providers and is not restrictive. Does the service provider or agency have to be based in Malaysia? Also, no. So you can use Indonesian companies for PPC, pay-per-click, advertising, social media advertising. You might be in Myanmar or intend to enter into Myanmar and you need to create a Facebook page. How many of you are in Myanmar? Anyone? It's really interesting in Myanmar because in Burma, the Burmese had internet come to them at such a later stage, and they never really evolved from utilizing Facebook to utilizing Google. So when they search for anything, any service providers, what is the best hot pot restaurant in Myanmar, for example, it is all done on Facebook. So they don't search for it on Google. So that kind of intricacies are really important. So yeah, if you're doing Facebook marketing in Myanmar, then your service provider does not need to be in Malaysia, can also be from there. Can you claim for ongoing projects? Reimbursement will be made to eligible companies for payment and activities taken from this year, right? 1st of January to 31st of December. But having said that, because there was 2 deadlines, it's actually for 14th of July to 31st of December are the ones that you are looking at right now, because the 12th of August deadline has passed. For advertising and promotion claim, does the start of the 30 calendar days submission deadline refer to the launch of the campaign or the date when the contract is signed? And they say the start of the activity. So the start of the activity then means the launch of the campaign. Can we combine different activities under one application? Again, very interesting. It relates to all of this, actually, when you think about this. Let's look at this. The paperwork might be tedious and you want to put a few things under one category. It's because you might not even have reached the cap. If you haven't reached the cap, why can't I put a few applications straight away? But you can't. It literally is, as they mentioned, it's one activity per application. So you might need your admin staff or yourself to spend time on this, because this can be tedious if there's many activities. So that's for the market development grant. And let's move on to another grant by MATRADE, which is the eTrade grant, eTrade 2.0. eTrade 2.0 has been a while, or longer than this recent grant. So the new grant was launched on 14th of July, which is very new because that was last month. This grant has been around and it's an incentive by MATRADE to assist new companies to accelerate export and onboard cross-border e-commerce platform for export. So it's to help you get online through e-commerce. That's what this grant's about. So how much is it? Not as much as the previous one. Onboarding scheme is 5,000 ringgit. And digital marketing and training, DMT scheme is 20,000. So Faisal, you're raising your hand. Do you have a question? Do you want to unmute and just ask the question? Is it related to this slide?
By mistake only he raised. No, he said no. Okay.
At least you're very interactive. Thanks for giving flavor to the presentation. All right, so this financial incentive, it's 5,000 for onboarding scheme. So this is actually on board on any platform. Then digital marketing and training, DMT scheme, is 20,000 ringgit for undertaking any digital marketing activities and or attending e-commerce training programs. So there is still a digital marketing grant of 20,000. Can you imagine, per company for 1 year subscription? And that's great because this grant has been going around for a while. So you see, earlier I was saying that the 300,000 cap for lifetime, that's why, because MATRADE has many different grants. So they've come up with this rule now that you only can claim up to 300,000 in your company's lifetime. But of course, if you start another company or you have a few companies, then it's per company, right? So it's really interesting how you can actually maximize it anyway if you have different businesses under different entities. All right, so that's for the eTrade. Who is eligible? You also have to be registered with SSM. You have to be selling made in Malaysia products. And Malaysian owned. So the thing is, you're made in Malaysia, selling Malaysian made products or Malaysian brand registered with MyPo. They are less strict, this one, because made in Malaysia, some things are not made in Malaysia, but the brand might be a Malaysian brand and everything is made in labor-intensive countries, right? So this is a bit more relaxed than the MATRADE MDG grant. But they still have the requirement of Malaysian-owned, and the SME definition is the same. And you must be a MATRADE member and have undertaken an additional test, which is the Exporters Readiness Assessment Test. And you must have registered for My Export. It's also recommended that you are registered with My Export, because MATRADE has a lot of information on export. And if you're exporting and you're not registered with MATRADE, it's a bit of a loss, because they also have trade fairs. They've been doing a lot of online trade fairs, getting groups and then trying to visit a specific country and how to enter the country, what are the challenges and so on. So do register yourself, and it's open for manufacturing and trading company only. So here, can you see the difference? That services cannot use eTrade. So this is more so for e-commerce platforms and companies that are selling products. Additional criteria for onboarding scheme is that minimum 6 months operation. You have to be in operation for 6 months, so no new companies can apply, and you have not received the eTrade incentive before. So this additional criteria for DMP is minimum 1 year in operation. E-commerce, you must be e-commerce ready. You must have been selling on cross-border e-commerce platform for no less than 1 year. So this means that it's also not new. It's not a new company that's applying for this grant. They want you to be showing some sort of presence already. You must already be present before you can apply for this. The reason for that, the rationale for that is basically they want you to be genuine. They want not someone just applying for the grant for the sake of applying for the grant. So someone's already out there trying to be on e-commerce, has put effort into it. The onboarding scheme is done through direct claim application, and within 6 months after the onboarding the e-commerce platform, companies must use the money incentives within the calendar year. So again, this one also, it's through submission online. The submit application form with detailed plan and quotation for your digital marketing template. So those who are listening in, actually only bother to listen if you actually are in the product category, right? Product category, then this is relevant if you haven't already applied for it. Then submit claim for reimbursement of incentive after all digital marketing services have been rendered by the service provider. This is after the activities ended. Service providers for DMT services can either be e-commerce platform themselves, technology solution providers authorized by MDEC only. So very interesting. So this is where they're talking about service providers for DMT can only be the e-commerce platform themselves, because sometimes you need to pay for this through the e-commerce platforms, and that's restrictive to business owners. And technology solution providers authorized by MDEC. List of authorized TSP can be provided to you. Company is allowed maximum 4 times claim submission. And 30 days within the date of activity is when the claim must be submitted. Now let's look at a business accelerator program, which is BAP 3.0. Again, another program under the MATRADE scheme. This is a matching grant given, and the scope of financing is 50%. So different from the previous two. Previous two, as you can see, many was 30,000, 70,000. Then you have eTrade, which is 5,000 and 20,000, and it's 100% reimbursable, right? Those are grants which is 100% you incur, 100% you get back. Of course, with evidence, there's a lot of documentation to show that you've incurred it. This is different. The BAP, Business Acceleration Program, is over 50% reimbursable and is open to projects implemented 180 days before the date of online submission. Okay, let's see, what does it cover? The scope of matching grant covers machinery and sensors that you purchase, CRM, automation systems, front-end and back-end systems, retrofitting, looking at refitting your equipment, warehousing systems, e-commerce. So that's 400,000, which is a high level because it's on the IT part. E-commerce is 50,000, maximum grant eligible, yeah. And then premises renovation and certification requirements, you have 200,000, including that is advertising and promotion, packaging and product packaging. Who can apply for it? You can see you need to first apply for SME status certification. The deal status certification immediately identifies that you're an SME, and there's a score test that you have to submit. So you have to apply for that too. Without this, the application will not be processed. So this is another grant, and eligibility of financing is based on a single business entity.
Geetha, before you go on, this one is by MATRADE or by SME Corp?
This one is by BAP. I think it's MATRADE. Hang on,
MATRADE.
Oh, wait. Too fast.
Because I'm familiar with the BAP, but the 3.0 I won't know. Because when you have score, right, you see your tips of applicants on the top, right? You have a score, and the only one that using score, to my knowledge, is SME Corp. There, SME Corp. Yeah, I saw SME Corp there. Or underneath your 50%.
It says the amount of financing to be determined by SME Corp, 50% of total approved cost, right? Okay. Yeah. So actually this one, I thought it was MATRADE actually, these three grants, but okay, then you're saying it's SME Corp. I can further clarify that, yeah. Then but this one's also been around for quite a while. But I think it's not, many people either are not aware or it's tedious to apply, but it's also 50% of financing that you can claim. But e-commerce is also here. So e-commerce cost is also covered. On AP, more on it, it's integrated assistance program and aim to enhance the capabilities of SMEs. And it's a matching grant, soft loan by SME Bank. So it's also a soft loan that's given by SME Bank. 50% of total approved costs. Yeah, you're right. It's here also. SME Corp determines it. 50% of approved costs. So number one, the cost must be approved, then you get 50%. You have to incur the cost first. All these grants, you have to incur the cost first. Now, I know that's why, especially if you're a startup, that's where it gets tricky because you have to incur the cost first. But that's why you really have to strategize and plan ahead and see if it's worthwhile. Eligibility of financing is based on single business entity. Maximum amount is 400,000 ringgit. And financing tenure is maximum of 6 months only. Terms and condition, balance deductions for previous grant recipients. Approved projects in previous grant applications are not eligible. So if you have in the past received grants from from SME Corp, then it becomes a question. They'll actually look at, can you actually apply again for this? Because it's not eligible. So, and I guess that's where they're hitting, both SME Corp and MATRADE, they're hitting in the sense that, the slides are moving, they're hitting in the sense that to ensure that more companies benefit and there are funds for new companies. What is the maximum grant eligible is 400,000 for these items that I said earlier, 50,000 for e-commerce, 200,000 for premises renovation, advertising and promotion, and packaging and product packaging. What is the project timeline required? We need to apply for it 6 months before the date of online submission. There is a processing fee, so this is different from the other two. This is applicable upon approval. Once you've approved, there's a 500 ringgit for SMEs, 300 ringgit for micro SMEs. Can the approved cost be dispersed to a supplier? 50% of the total approved cost is allowed to be dispersed directly to the supplier. So the details can be found on SME Corp's website. If you need the links to all of this, let us know. We'll definitely provide it to you, even for the earlier two grants. What could delay your application? And this is the same all across all of these three grants, is that the greatest setback is incomplete documentation. So where you have questions, we highly request for you to write to SME Corp or MATRADE or call them, because get your documentation correct would definitely speed up the whole process of once you submit it. Because if you even get it wrong, you might even have, as the last sentence says, that you might even have the application being disqualified. And that's very risky, considering that if you are strategizing on doing things that this year instead of next year because of the grant, then you then get disqualified, and that's a setback for you in terms of cash flow. Full guidelines for any of the grant, let us know. If you need any of the links, also let us know. We will send it to you. Now let's look at case studies. I'll go through this very, very quickly and feel free to ask questions. So let's say you're going overseas, then what do? Yes, there's money from the government. how do you then protect your brands globally? There are many strategies here. 3 things that are very important: compliance to the laws of foreign countries. You have to make sure that you're compliant to all the laws of foreign country, not just the IP laws, of course. You're looking at whatever products you're doing. If it's a cosmetic product, if it's a drug, if it's electronic products, ensure that you're compliant to their labeling law, their safety law, whatever that's relevant to the product you're selling. Ensure that you're not infringing other parties' rights. The last thing you want is get your brand there, get your product there. And I've had meetings with clients, and it's really interesting. There's so much challenges, right? Getting your product out. It's so easy to say, yes, you must go out of Malaysia, go into ASEAN. But I'm aware of how much of hassle and trouble there is. The last thing you want is you overcome all your obstacles, you put in all the effort, do the research, and you get your product, you make your first sale. Then you get a legal letter that says that this brand is mine. Stop selling it, change your brand, right? And that happens a lot to brands, designs, and we're still always scrambling when clients come to us saying, okay, what do we do overseas, right? So make sure you're not infringing on other parties' rights. Finding out, the cost of finding out is cheaper than having that problem and trying to solve it. Then claiming exclusivity to your brands, right? The last thing you want to do is build brand presence, spend on advertising and promotion in those countries, and then don't register your brand, but someone else goes and registers your brand and then tries to be funny with you and ask you to pay them to buy back your brand. And it sounds really funny. It sounds horrible. You're like, who does that? It's so common. It's so common that there is even a phrase for it. It's called trademark hijackers, right? Happens a lot in countries like Vietnam and in Indonesia, because in those countries, first to file have better rights than first to use. First person to file the trademark has better rights than first to use the trademark. Now, protecting your brands globally, there's various routes. One route is that you can go national, meaning that you file direct. Let's say you want to enter into 5 countries. It's Singapore, it's Thailand, it's Vietnam, and so on. We file direct, protect your mark directly. Then there's regional routes. Some countries, ASEAN sadly doesn't have that regional route, have a regional application. European Union, for example, you file one application and you get 27 countries. Sadly, UK is no longer in that, but one certificate protects you in all 27 countries, right? That's the regional route. Then you have the international route. The international route is called MADRID protocol, right? It sounds so fancy. It's because there was a treaty signed in Madrid. That's why it's called a MADRID protocol. And Malaysia recently came to sign this and enter into this. We are before Myanmar, so we are the second last country in the ASEAN region to enter into this. As usual, we're very slow with many things. So we're also slow with this. The only other country that hasn't entered is Myanmar, right? But how can we compare ourselves to Myanmar? So very interestingly, in 2019, we entered, and this is great for local business owners, right? Why is it great for local business owners? Local business owners can now venture abroad in a cheaper manner and in a quicker manner without lawyers. Now, let me explain a bit more on this. The benefits are immense. So you'll see a lot of local owners, and we've been helping a lot of local owners to do this. Why is it cheaper? Why is it quicker? Right? This is why. These are the advantages. First, it's administered by the International Bureau of the World Intellectual Property Organization. Then you have a centralized filing system. And currently, the member states are total 122. It's a user-friendly and cost-effective system, and it was first adopted in 1989. I think among the ASEAN countries, Singapore was one of the earliest to adopt MADRID protocol. I'll explain a bit more what this means, right? How does MADRID protocol work? These are the countries. Many countries have already acceded to it. So this is how it works. If you have a trademark, so let's say you are selling cosmetic. Okay, I'm going to use one of our clients. Our clients sells face masks, Nutrovis, and that's one of the brands that they have. So they file locally in Malaysia, and then if they want to go to 6 or 7 other countries, we then file an international application, also with the Malaysian IP office, but the Malaysian IP office will send these documents to the World Intellectual Property Office in Geneva. Then the documents are then sent to designated countries, let's say 7 countries. these documents are sent to 7 countries to their IP office. So basically all the IP office are talking to each other. That's what this is. That's the easiest way to explain MADRID protocol. The IP officers in Malaysia will talk to the international IP office, and the international IP office will send all these documents to 7 countries that we've designated. Then they examine the marks. We only come back into the picture when there's an objection. In Thailand, maybe there's an objection. There's a similar trademark in Thailand that's now stopping your trademark. There is another similar mark in Indonesia, or the description of good is wrong and it needs to be changed and things like that. So you basically eliminate lawyers, which previously the old way, which is a national route of filing in each country. We are present in 6 countries, right? But if we're not present in 6 countries, we also have to appoint a lawyer there. So you get our fee and you get their fee. So this eliminates the whole getting the lawyers for your application process. That's why it was big. When this was introduced, the big brands like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, KFC, all the big companies, Adidas, Nike, push for international applications because they have so many countries to protect the brand, and they don't have one brand to protect. They have many brands to protect. So in the rationale on why this comes about is because how do we grow if the cost of protecting a brand is already an obstacle to growth, right? That's the rationale on this. So this is a great system. However, it really depends on how many countries you have, right? It can be, I think later when I talk about advantages, we'll talk about that, because sometimes if you're just entering into 2 countries, then don't bother. If you're planning to enter into 6 to 10 countries, then yeah, it's definitely worth it. So this is the trend over the years. It's becoming more and more attractive for applicants to use the MADRID protocol system. International applications, the top origin countries are US, Germany, China. Earlier we said, okay, who are looking at the ASEAN market? And many of you said China and US, and you can see these are powerhouses. They're not just conquer their own country in terms of market demand and commercialization, but they also go abroad. But you also have there Germany, France, European countries, Switzerland, UK, Japan, Italy, Australia uses it quite a bit too. Singaporeans also use it quite a bit. But you have to also know Malaysians are not aware of this because it recently came into the picture, only about end of 2019, and then we entered into a pandemic. Designated countries, okay, these are where the origin of the applications are coming. That means which brands are utilizing this to go abroad and file and protect abroad. These are, where are they designating? Very important as well. Can you see where the important markets, the business is being done? It's EU, China, US, Japan, Russia, Australia, Switzerland, UK, and so on. All right, so I'm going to skip this. As of November 2019, the MADRID system has been recorded. It's 1.5 million international registrations. You can see how valuable it is and how many applications have been done. Quickly, advantages. I've said earlier, I'm actually a very pro MADRID protocol because it is a very quick way for a brand owner. Always advise in terms of a brand owner, right? What's best for you? It's simple and easy to use, cost effective, one-stop center, and the fixed examination timeline. Earlier, I said that when it's sent to all the IP officers speak to each other. There's a time period where each IP office must meet a certain deadline, which is basically 18 months from the date of filing the application. All trademarks must be examined. They must be examined because some countries can be very slow. So that deadline then pushes the IP office in each country to move fast to meet this deadline. They basically have a KPI. Because it was simple and user-friendly, it's like I said earlier, actually you eliminate lawyers. So you don't actually have the old way of doing things. There's more time spent to enter each country individually in the old route, an additional cost for attorneys, multiple fees. We're paying also separate attorneys and separate times. And then there's non-standardized filing dates. There's non-standardized renewal dates. Some countries require translation to be provided. All of that is eliminated. Now, comparing between national route and MADRID protocol, it saves a lot of time. Okay, it's one fee, one cost-effective method, one application, and standardized dates. Another thing is that it's a one-stop system for portfolio management. If you have a few brands and suddenly you change your company name, that becomes a hassle to go to all your countries and start changing the owner of the brand. Because if your company name changes, then your trademark certificate name has to change because your name's on that certificate. Change of documentation, right? it becomes a one-stop system, because if you change the international application at the World IP Organization in Switzerland, online, everything is online, even though I'm saying like countries, just to give you an idea where it goes to, it is going to an office building in Switzerland, but it's all being sent online. All of this is done in a systemized manner and in a consistent manner, and it's one application, right? The change of applicant's name, change of ownership, change of address, limitation of goods and services. So that's all synchronized. And it's cost effective. I mentioned this, it's one application fee. The biggest thing is you eliminate attorney's fees. For smooth application, this is very important for smooth application, because attorney's fees are incurred again when there is objections at the objections during the national stage. This is an example of when a client asked us, Geetha, I do want to enter these countries. Let me know the cost. And we did a comparison. So we're entering into, these are the main markets, right? Singapore, US, EU, Australia, China, and Japan. You're looking at incurring close to 50,000 ringgit. If we go direct, 45,650. But if you use the MADRID protocol, it's a lot cheaper. It's 20,700 ringgit. So that's how the cost comparison, there's lots of benefit. And there's fixed examination timeline. Again, 18 months. So a lot of IP officers, right? Especially if they're in Indonesia, countries that are developing, either the examiners are not trained or they don't have enough examiners, take a long time. When we file an application, it's very sad, but sometimes it's 2 years before you get your certificate of registration. So that itself is an indication that this is good, because it pushes these IP officers to examine within 18 months. They are under stress. In fact, that was one of the reasons Malaysia was delaying it. Is our IP office ready for such kind of stress? Is our IP office ready for that kind of deadlines, right? And I don't think we need to address this. Subsequent designations. Okay, this all gets very, very technical. Okay, let's talk about disadvantages. There is a few disadvantages. I'll talk about the central attack. Basic application is a must. In a MADRID protocol application, a basic application is a must. That means you must file your home country application. If your entity is in Singapore, you have to file a Singaporean application. If your entity is in Malaysia, you have to file a Malaysian application first. Your basic application is a must. But what is interesting, right? See, the MADRID protocol comes about for the reason I said earlier. A lot of the big brands want to make sure there's an easy way to protect abroad. But with basic application, this system that enables brand owners to go abroad and file abroad in a cheaper way can also be detrimental if a trademark hijacker uses the system too. Can you imagine? A copycat brand comes and uses a system that enables him to copy very easily, file very easily as well, in a cost-effective manner, in a quick manner, which is hilarious, but it's horrible. It's funny, but it's horrible. For that reason, there's this thing called a central attack. The system allows you to attack any application that's been filed in the MADRID protocol system. If the base application is not registered yet, I can attack and then make that entire I designate to 5 countries and so on. That entire designation collapses. My entire MADRID protocol application collapses. And the reason behind is to stop hijackers. But that's a risk, because not just hijackers are at risk, normal brand owners are also at risk. If someone attacks my application, then everything then cascades. So what happens? What can you do when that happens? There is a way out. There's a way out if that happens, where the IP office, your local IP office doesn't register your brand, or someone attacks it and it doesn't get registered. Very quickly, we need to transform your designated countries to national applications, to then enter into the national route, single applications. Yep. All right. So that's it for me. And the other disadvantage is sometimes the countries that you're interested in are not members of the MADRID protocol. Okay. So now, is it the right system for you? Very important. If the quickest answer to explain this slide is, it's the system for you if you have big dreams. You want to conquer many markets. Your plan in 10 years is to enter many markets. Then yes. If no, you don't have that kind of plans, I only want to enter maybe two big markets and that's it, then it might not be the right strategy for you. So that's the end. And I really appreciate all of you to take your time out on a Friday afternoon after a busy week. Thank you so much for listening to me. Before going global, I want you to leave with 3 things. One is be aware of your IP rights. Take all the necessary actions to officially protect your mark abroad. And the last one, actually, I prefer you to say, utilize the grants. Be very aware of the grants that we offer and utilize the grants. And very important, right, is the grants all have a deadline, especially the market development grant, which is the export incentives that the government introduced this year. And we leave you with before the Q&A session, snapshot this. If you want us to do a free identical trademark search, we're offering it to only attendees of MDEC. Right? So because you're here, because you took time, this is special for you. We normally charge, for searches, we normally charge. For identical search, we charge 150 ringgit. For similarity search, it goes up to 300 plus ringgit. But a free identical search is offered to you. If it's not in Malaysia, let us know what country. We can also help you out. All right. So back to you, Carol.
Thank you. Wow. I learned a lot. From the previous KASS, I can't remember who was with me last year. One of our Ding Talk was explaining this, but I truly enjoy your presentation because you've got that aura, you've got that charm, you've got that the ability to educate people. So I really enjoy that. It's very hard to please people like us. we see so many
I feel
people
honored.
sharing, right?
You.
So that was very, very good. Your slides tells you about your sharing, your case study. You share about what are the basic Q&A. So everybody, don't worry. The slides that I asked Geetha to prepare in PDF, I will send it to you as a thank you email tonight or in the weekend. To the people who registered in the Zoom session that came in just now when you register. So I will copy that. You come in 2-3 minutes or 8-9 minutes, I won't give. You must come in 10, 11, 12 minutes onwards, then I'll share. It's worth sharing because that information you have to search yourself. And now it's all in KASS compressed PDF website. So that was very, very good. I will pass the mic now. Harid, you can come on your camera as well. To answer because there's some interesting question. I will pass now the mic to Rizwan to take on with the Q&A. Go ahead, Rizwan.
Thank you, Carol. I'm surprised that I'm listening to a lawyer. Normally, when lawyers start talking, I will only like, okay. I think Geetha did a very good job in explaining the whole thing. I don't know when the rest about the rest, whether they are quiet because they are listening or they are swarmed with information. So, but if you're swarmed with information, we can take it on bite size. You can start to ask questions. So this is where you get bite size information rather than, you know, like one sum from Geetha. All right. So before we go to Q&A, I think I want to cover some message from sponsors. Not really sponsors lah, from MDEC. Okay, if you like webinars such as this, you can actually join our community. We actually have a community where we get along, we get to know more about e-commerce. So there's a few channels for you to go. There's actually our close FB groups. You can go to Facebook and search for MDEC e-commerce, one word, right? Or you can actually join our Ding Talk community. It's a very big community, comprises of 5,300, almost 5,400 members, and most of them are enablers, so you can get more infos, more insights on what's happening. Other than that, if you want to know more videos such as this, you can actually go to Carol's YouTube channel, actually on YouTube. You can just search for Carol Fung. You will see her picture there, right? And last but not least, register to our newsletter. We won't spam you. We only will tell you information on the latest event that is happening on e-commerce, and this will be good for you. Trust me. And if you think that there's any other topics that you want us to cover, do contact us through the channel that we mentioned to you. So we'll try to see whether we can set that up. Okay, Carol? So can we go to the Q&A now? Yeah, let's go to the Q&A. Geetha, you ready? answer
Yes.
all the bullet questions.
Put me on the grill.
Okay. All right. Guys, don't forget, keep the question coming. So, it's very difficult to get a lawyer consult for free. Yeah.
We get such a bad name for ourselves, don't we?
All right. Let's go for Kevin. All right. Kevin asked question. Does MADRID protocol apply for copyright or only trademark? Asking for SaaS software scenario.
All right, Kevin, thanks for tuning in and thanks for that question too. MADRID protocol only applies for brands, only applies for trademarks. If you are in a service as a software scenario, then you're looking at needing to protect your copyright. But the good news for you, Kevin, is copyright automatically exists. That's one of the best IP rights. So for us, in any IP firm, intellectual property firm, copyright is not a revenue thing for us because it automatically exists. But having said that, we do file a lot of voluntary notification of copyright in Malaysia because it's not mandatory, but it's voluntary. Because why do we protect anything? Why do we have a birth certificate? You want your name on a document to prove you are the person behind that whole certificate. I am so and so. That's why we carry a passport. That's why you have IC. It's the same thing for your software. Very difficult, even though you own it, to prove in court that you own it. And lagi when you go to other countries, right? So this voluntary notification system in Malaysia and in other countries, copyright is voluntary in most countries. It's a way to get a certificate and show the judge that I am the owner for the software and this person here that I'm suing has copied it. And that's why you need to make him pay me damages. That's the easiest way to explain it in a non-legal sense, right? But basically, it's evidence. It's called prima facie evidence, and this evidence stands in court. That's why even though copyright is automatic, a lot of players who are afraid of copycats, either by competitors or ex-employees, will then go and get this document. So we file it. We file it for quite a lot of software producers. We file it for even architects. We file their drawings, their architect drawings. Copyright is also very common in the education industry. They're very scared of handouts, syllabus, everything being copied. So they go and register that too. Kevin, so I'm sorry for you. It doesn't apply in MADRID protocol. MADRID protocol is only for brands, right? All right, Kevin. Thanks. Back to you, Rizwan.
Wait, Rizwan. Kevin WhatsApped me just now and he said, thank you for answering my question because he's about to leave. He is based in Austria. He was our ex-Lazada management team. So he has another SaaS software that they develop over in Australia, working with partners over there. So I hope that he is going to come to our community to share about how to export to EU. So he was very fascinated at the part where you said EU is a go-to market. And that's why he asked those kind of questions. So Kevin sends his regards and thank you for that answer, Geetha.
Oh, so interesting. He's in Austria. He probably has no lockdown. I'm jealous.
Yeah, he left already because we met him before in Zoom, and I was happy to get to know that they are developing a software and a partnership with German, Austria, Belgium, all the Europe countries to allow our Malaysians to go to export via Amazon or via eBay or via whatever marketplace. So I am banking in on Kevin and his team to share us one day when they are ready to share to us. Okay?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, because Kevin have a few questions actually that is quite interesting to be shared with the rest as well. So on the first grant that you mentioned, right? You mentioned about the advertising and promotion for claiming, right? However, it is very broad. What is defined as claimable for advertising and promotion here?
Wow, I think it is broad because advertising is broad. This actually is, as long as advertising and promotion shows that it is for the export market, very important. So if anything shows that you're doing this for the Malaysian market, it won't fall under claimable. You have to be very, very careful. But yes, it's broad. So it's going to be making brochures. It's either print or off print, right? So it's going to be online or print. That's what it is, right? Okay. And then it's going to be, if it's print, you have to prove, why is this not for the Malaysian market, right? Is it for different markets? So it'll be address, contact numbers, where is it available, whether it's product or services. MATRADE will definitely be analyzing, is this for the export market?
Okay, cool. Another question is on the certification. So you mentioned about international certification for exports, right?
Yeah.
Is there a limitation on what certificate to go, or as long as it is a certification for export purposes?
Oh, that's a very good question. I'm not sure. Actually, that one I have to look at the form specifically. Right now, it just says international certification. So the certification has to be international. And I'm sure the certification, CIVIM is a local certification.
Right.
So it's not an international certification. So that would be definitely certifications that recognize internationally. But all of this, right, which one is a very good question, where there is cost to be incurred. And because we're looking at the next 6 months, I would suggest anyone tuning in, if you're going to incur it, get clarification first. If when you download a form or you go to MATRADE's website and you don't see enough information. We have been doing that because, of course, we're takut. You incur the cost and then tak boleh claim pula, right? That everyone, all 44 participants are listening in. I'm sure that's what you're worried about. And I even saw one of the questions actually really made me laugh, because it says, if you use KASS services, how can you ensure that we can claim from MATRADE successfully? It is a very good question. I would have asked myself that too if I was listening. It is for IP. It's again going to be what documentation? Did you file it from this time period? Is it for overseas market? If you're meeting all the criteria that MATRADE has put on their website, why would it not be successful? That's going to be the reason, right? And getting clarification before you apply is also crucial, because if there is a rejection or there's an objection, when you then appeal, when you speak to the officer, you can give all the evidence of your communication saying that they said that this was allowed, right? So that's very important. So it goes back to your international certification. They have mentioned international certification, but in every industry, they will know their specific certifications that's special to them. Write to MATRADE, get clarification.
Great. So I think that by explaining, you answer yourself the question. She's knowledgeable. That's how you can ensure that you get claimed. She'll be able to tell you what can be claimed, what cannot be claimed before you claim, so you don't do mistakes. All right. Okay. This question has been coming up twice already, so I need to ask. In any of the grants that you mentioned, does any of it imply to service provider?
Yes, we are happy because we are a service provider. The MATRADE Development Grant, the MDG, or the export incentives, the first one. So to whoever who asked that question, I started out with the first one, right? Saying that we have 6 months to apply. That applies to service providers for sure. So that means you're looking at IP and you're looking at advertising and promotion. But also, there's another grant called Service Export Fund, also by MATRADE. And we have been using that fund when we used to attend conferences abroad and we apply for that fund, but there's a very small limit. I think there's a 5,000 or less than 5,000 limit. So in terms of amount that you can claim, is not much, but it saves your cost. And then now that everything has gone online, you can also apply for the Service Export Fund for online events that you're paying for. But it's like an export fund. It's MATRADE encouraging you to venture out of Malaysia. So you can also look at that Service Export Fund plus this MDG grant.
How about service providers for training?
Likewise, which one? It has to be, you're looking at, again, is your market Malaysia? If you're trying to get a grant and your market is in Malaysia, it's very difficult. MATRADE is going to look at that. It needs to be a grant taking. MATRADE is all about that, right? I mean, for those of you listening in, MATRADE is a government organization all about Malaysian businesses going out. MIDA is about foreign businesses coming in, right? They're supposed to bring foreign direct investment. MATRADE takes us out. So the grants are all relevant to that. That's why it's about e-commerce, because they're looking at export market. Then they're looking at Services Export Fund. Then you're looking at Market Development Grant. The answer is all in the name of the grant already. So it's back to your training provider, to do that person who asked this question. Are you providing training outside of Malaysia? Then of course, try to find a way where you can get these grants.
Cool. All right. Okay. Trademark protection is not for material in content, right? That is different. What is it falls under? It's not trademark, right?
For content, as in like the training material, is it? Yeah. Okay, that's under copyright. Anything that's written, artistic, there'll be copyright.
So they can apply for
the voluntary notification. There was one question earlier on the software as a service. They can apply for voluntary notification with the Malaysian IP office or the foreign offices. That then shows that they are the true owner of the material they have created.
And that can be claimed?
If overseas, yes. Overseas, again, so yes, you can definitely claim that.
Okay. Okay. All right. This is another anonymous question. Okay, the question goes like this. Please advise what grant just mentioned by presenter we entitled to apply grant for new registered this year on month August 2021 with MATRADE or SSM business service providers such as providing already answer lah. Cuma this one longer. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm looking at it. Yeah, such as provide virtual class online.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, they're asking what grant is applicable for company service provider that is doing training. So I think you answered both already.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. All right. Any other people? Any other participants want to ask any question? If not, then Carol, do you want to cover the poll?
Yes. Let's see now. Just now, I asked you all to go for two question. Two question poll is very simple. Are you already exporting via e-commerce? 18 of you said yes, but 27 of you said no. Majority of you may be doing export traditional way, like quotation, via the phone or via email. So the others are via e-commerce. And the next question, have you registered your logo brand for trademark? 13 of you, 29% said yes, but majority of you don't have. I like the fact that, Geetha, you shared something to us is that we Malaysians never pay attention to that detail, especially protecting their rights or their brand and all. But why is that? Is it because the perception of them saying that it's very expensive for them to do so? Why is that? But there's government grant, right?
I think it's not that. I think it's I feel for the entrepreneurs. You've got staff to pay, you've got managing your business operations. This doesn't sound like a problem at all until the problem hits you in your face. It's always like that. Like our clients, some of our really dedicated clients who file in many countries that they enter into or very vigilant about searching the trademark before they enter a market have been burned before. Some of them have really suffered. And that's when you learn, right? You learn in the hard way. And I think that's one of the reasons. There are other issues to fight, other fires to put off, not your IP. And you always think problems happens to others, not me.
Yeah.
That's one. And then the other thing I get that a lot of people think my idea is very creative. No one has come up with it, and no one will copy. So you also hope that no one will copy. But actually, I feel like there were so many answers to your question, Carol. One more is that a lot of people think it's expensive. 100% those are so shy to ask how much is it here. So guys, we will liaise with Carol to get your details, but it's not expensive. Like if you haven't applied for it, it's not expensive.
How about tell us a range?
Yeah, it's going to actually say that. So for trademarks, it's around 2,000 to 2,500 ringgit, depending. Yeah. So and then it's also broken to different stages. For design, it's about 2,500 to 3,000 ringgit to register the design. Copyright is also around 2,500 to 3,000 ringgit. So you're looking at it being very affordable, but people get very kind of like fearful because I'm going to a lawyer. So I'm going to a lawyer, it's going to be like, a lot. But it's a very competitive field.
I've been under university last time, and then this issue always comes up, the issue about copywriting and so on, right? Last time they say that the duration it will took you more than 3 years. Is it true?
Used to. We had, oh my God, like sometimes 5 years plus, because okay, what happens is it used to be the case, no longer, yeah. So to any Malaysian IP office examiners listening in, it used to be the case, and one examiner actually told me this: if they have a difficulty in deciding whether your trademark is different from an existing trademark, even though KASS has already responded and given a lot of arguments how these brands are different, the examiner, if they cannot make a decision, they just leave the file there. One day I will decide. Because that is a decision they need to make. Are you going to allow our client's brand to proceed to registration? Or are you finding the earlier brand an obstacle and it's not, you're going to say, no, you cannot register. It's a difficult decision, and it's tough on the examiner's side because you're also telling no to a business owner. You cannot use your brand, right? But they leave the file aside. And I'm like, what? You leave the file aside? No, you have to make a decision. It's a hard decision, but you have to make a decision. But this no longer happens. So it used to be the case in many countries, but MADRID protocol has sped up a lot of things. Malaysia also, we now see getting certificate of registrations within 1.5 years.
Ah, that's quick. Still 1.5 years.
Yeah, Singapore is 9 months. So Malaysia will take a long time before we get to Singapore stage, but it's still very fast.
Wow. I think another issue is about knowledge on, they know that they need to lock their brand, but they don't know how. They don't know who to talk to.
Also, many Rizwan always think, let me become famous first, right? Let me become famous first, then I'll attend to all this.
Like the case of Harimau Menangis.
Yeah, that's true.
The owner was registering without knowing that they can't, right?
Yes.
Eventually it's going to get rejected.
No, but what happens is, right, that the wait until I become famous first is already the wrong mentality, because if you're a business owner, you're going to have challenges throughout your entire journey. So it's not wait until I become famous first, it's I'm going to make it famous. So when I register my brand, I myself believe in my brand. Right? Your belief system is all, I feel like it's a whole mindset thing. If I've created an idea, I want to put a service out there, I want to put a product out there, 5 years down the line, I want to hit these markets, I want to hit this sales revenue. Why do you not believe in your own brand to register your brand so that you don't have all this hanky-panky nonsense to deal with in court if someone copies the brand? You want people to copy, you want to be the person sending a legal letter to them. So it's really interesting, that question. But I always think they think it's expensive. Then they get surprised that it's not that expensive.
So another question. So do I go to any lawyer? Or specific
You're
lawyer?
asking me? Of course I'm going to say come to KASS.
No. I mean, a business owner won't know. They only have one lawyer, which, maybe their home lawyer and so on. Can they just go to any lawyer? Or you guys actually have a
Actually, that's a really good question. You know why? Yeah. It's because it takes some time, right? It takes 1 year. And there's various stages. Okay? It goes to a trademark examination process. If the IP office doesn't examine what's going on, you need to send a reminder. You need to find out what's going on, push it towards examination. Then when it's examined, let's say it's objected to, a letter will be issued, objection letter. Then there's a deadline. So sometimes we get clients that way, they miss these deadlines because you file the application yourself, but you're doing so many things in your business. When one letter comes, you're like, okay, not so important. I'll put it to the side first. But there's a deadline in that letter. And then that deadline is 2 months from the date Malaysian IP office issues an objection to respond. Then after that, there's more deadlines. After you respond to that, it gets published. When it's published, there's a 2 months deadline where it's advertised in a government gazette. Then after it's advertised, there is a 6 months before it's registered and you get a certificate. So all this, you need systems. So we have software, specific softwares to docket all the files, to track the deadlines, to send reminders to the client. It is an entire process. And like the cost wise is 2,500 ringgit, right? And you have the entire system of tracking all of this. And imagine, Rizwan, if it's overseas. Lagi, if you're fighting in a few countries, imagine what you're tracking. Right. So for that reason, going to any lawyer is risky. Because if they are just any lawyer, they might not have the systems in place which a specialized lawyer usually has.
So don't simply go to any lawyer. Find lawyer like KASS to actually settle your IP dispute. Don't go to any lawyer. Don't go to your relationship lawyer.
Nanti I buy you coffee, yeah?
Next question. Go on.
Okay. Oh, all right. Ganesh Manakara asked a question. All right. Oh, okay. See? I already told you. Thank you for this great session and free lawyer service. When I submit a proposal for MDC Gate or any other program, how do I ensure my idea does not get stolen?
Ganesh, that's a tough one.
And let's say I'm in ideation stage of a product, somewhat similar to LinkedIn, Facebook, that sort. What do I do? What should I do?
This is also the same question I saw in the entrepreneurs and startup in Malaysia. Some startups, when they pitch an idea, they get afraid and phobia enough that how do I know that the people who are listening to my pitching, my idea, they will suddenly steal my idea and they do it in the end and they lose that. So how do they get protection from that?
It's a really tough one because you see, ideas themselves cannot be protected. IP, intellectual property, is property. That means it's something that's come out from your mind, right? The idea is still there. It's still stuck in your head. So the idea cannot be protected. You need to reduce to substance. Whether you put it into a software, then you protect by copyright. You have a brand, then you protect by trademark, right? So I know pitch, a lot of them haven't done the prototype yet because it's an pitch, right? So the best you can do is not reveal all your juice, right? That's very important because your nitty-gritty on what's going to go into the software, how you're going to execute, all that, try to keep. You have to be very smart about that. That's very important. Because even if you ask them to sign a non-disclosure agreement, a lot of incubators and investors don't sign all this agreement, right? They'll say, thank you very much. You don't need to pitch. I don't want to hear your idea, right? So it's a willing party to sign these NDAs. NDAs are the best. NDAs are the best where you can get someone to sign a non-disclosure agreement. I'm revealing all this to you on a duty of confidence. You must keep everything confidential. That's the best. But I know the scenario is the pitch, none of them will sign. The judges won't sign all of this. Wow. So you have to be very careful with what you share. Share the overall concept, but maybe the magic you keep to yourself.
Amazing. That's good. Very good tip. Thank you.
Welcome.
So
good. Answer live already. Okay.
So in a simpler term, if you want to show something, show a little bit only.
Yeah, see, Ganesh is facing that at the moment. Ganesh, I would advise you be in the network of KASS. Maybe KASS has some experience with startups and pitching, and they know probably how to reveal a little bit. So get connected with Vijay, with Geetha. Geetha is a very busy lady. Vijay is much more responsive, fast responsive. Geetha has got a lot of meetings back to back, so I don't blame her. But Vijay very, very fast in responding into KASS question. Okay, and then Geetha is there writing the email and all. So please do that. Razwan, wrap up before we close for this. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. I think we have answered all the burning questions. Now we know about the grants that is available by MATRADE, and we know what KASS is capable of doing, right? So if you want, you can actually contact KASS at the chat there. That's actually the number, 25%. Yeah. And thank you guys. Don't forget, next week, very interesting session for you. We actually have a session on Canva. Right.
Sounds very exciting.
Same time, same day, different date.
Yeah, next week.
Thanks, both of you. Thanks, Carol.
Thank you, Geetha. Thank you, Hari, for being here. Thank you, Vijay, for being here. thank you for the 43 of you who came, and some came as far in Austria and also London. I know Simon Suresh is here, and Simon Suresh will be contacting KASS as well, especially on the exporting ground on halalstreet.co.uk. Thank you, everybody. Have a good Friday. Give me time to edit the video. Some of them say, Carol, I lambat masuk, nanti I catch up your video. I said, yes, no problem. So it takes time for me to do so. I will send a thank you email once Geetha send me the PDF slides. Okay? Thank you, everybody, Carol, for your time.
Yes. Don't just watch the video. Like, share, subscribe.
Malaysians are not good with YouTube, not as good as Facebook and all. Not our time yet. So we have to practice from there, everybody. Practice from there and comment in the video. But thank you.
Practice start with our YouTube page. Like,
Geetha, I am
subscribe.
impressed at your presentation, at your information that you shared to us. That was a very good one. We look forward again. If there's any case study that you would like to share from KASS, most welcome to share it with us in another session like this. It's brilliant. I really enjoyed this session a lot.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Can they say, please subscribe and send?
Thank you, Ganesh. Thank you for your time. All right, I will stop recording and see you next week, guys.